running multiple versions of VirtualBox. It's a little bit quicker. But ultimately, you will end up with that template you just spoke of. So you might end up having several of those templates. And it's done. So here's my new election that I just imported. And then you can go to work in it. Your elections will continue to essentially pile up here, but you can back them up to any kind of external media anytime you want and clean them up from this screen. And ultimately, what I was just going to show you is you'll get to the point where you want to quote-unquote print. You'll have the ability to do things like create a sample ballot set if you want, things like that. But this will end up creating everything you need to run your election. And with that, I'll just show you briefly. It will create what we call a card file. And inside of it, you have your ballot artwork. You have things like your PDF, which tells your scanners how to count ballots. You'll have a backup of the election. And the thing I like about this is in one single zip file, you have everything you need that goes together. So as long as you don't mess with the integrity of this zip file, you know that every single one of these ballots is going to run in that PDF. You don't have to be confused about what PDF goes with what piece of art. Certainly doesn't mean if you find an error, you can't go in and undo all of this and redo it. But when you're done, you have a single zip file with everything you need in it. Does that make sense?
How are audio files created?
Automatic. We have text-to-speech capability within the software. So, and actually, let me. What do you mean automatic? Let me find a good one here.
I mean, you make it sound like it's magic. So it just creates it like in the background?
To create that.
Same if you have Spanish.
Same if I have Spanish.
Yeah, just like Spanish lessons.
And you can also, I actually subscribe to a service for like $5 a month where it's even better text-to-speech. This is straight out of Google, right? I mean, this is what they provide and it's pretty good. For like $5 a month, you can do in different, I have a colleague in Pennsylvania that likes to tell everybody that I like the Australian woman's voice as my ballot reader. She's lying, but she still says it every demo over it.
If you want to stay the voice of Cuyahoga County, whoever records it now, you can always record over
Absolutely.
any particular field as well.
We're good.
The other thing that's provided out of this, and I think James wants to talk a little bit about programming, but the ADF file tells our ballot marking device how to mark any given ballot. Again, single file programming, I think we talked about that earlier, but it's one file no matter how many precincts and locations you have. You make it precinct or location specific when you interact with the unit to get it ready for testing. What I miss?
Test deck creation. So we touched earlier on the ADA, LNA type of stuff. Do you guys have software that would create a test deck for the precinct scanner?
Can you answer that?
If you want.
Yeah, our ballot on demand software that is going to be, part of it's coming out for May, the rest of it's coming out for November, is going to have test deck functionality. I doubt very seriously whether it meets your guys' test decks that you use now. So I'll let Jordan speak to this, but I think we could probably work with you on your special test decks. And I don't think you guys are making any changes anytime soon, but we would have time to do that. And we can also do test decks for you as a service.
Yeah, so
if we're, go ahead.
Yeah, so to his point, we have a test deck service that not only does the traditional ones, but has the ability to program in any of the really complex ones that we see. That's not yet automated, but obviously what the requirements are to eventually automate that. So the initial layout is just more the traditional marking patterns. But we both have the service to offer, and that, we should talk through that, and then the later piece, which hopefully gives you great.
Yeah, we currently created our own test deck, so we can independently test. ESNS has one, but for years we had it and it worked, and then we switched versions, so we had to catch up to it. But we like to create our own, so we can test it on other.
And you do something like with wards and stuff like that too?
We do by polling locations and by municipalities for
Okay.
different equipment.
Okay.
So it's depending on how we want to do it, and then obviously, right now we have 3 different types of unit. We have the AutoMark, we have the DS200. So the AutoMark, we just have some blank ballots. The precinct scanners, we want to do by poll, because that's how they're deployed. And then we do by city, by municipality for the high-speed scanners. Just to give you a little background on what we do right now. We currently have our own test deck. It's independent from ESNS. Our IT department created it, so that we use, so we can tell our public that it's another independent. We don't want to buy right now we buy our software, our paper, our hardware, all from the same company, so.
Right.
How do you trust that they're what they're selling you is testing the equipment fully? And we know it does, but we always have those people in the public that don't believe anything that the vendor gives you is any good.
Right.
So this is another way of telling, at least we can show them that we do.
How do
we work with
you know how the IT's program marks those ballots to create the test deck? I'm just.
I'd have to talk to her. I'd have to talk to
Disclose some
her.
proprietary.
That would be a service.
We can talk about that more.
All we
later.
did was give them the parameters and the algorithm we wanted, and then she created whatever marks the ovals and all that. We don't
That's
have.
interesting, 'cause
Are they creating it off of your election day PDF file, or?
It's a combination of, it's a PDF file, and what's else she used?
They created a special, piece of software that takes information from one of our EZIP backup files, and it
Yeah.
takes data from there with rows and position numbers, and then the PDFs, and kind of runs it and somehow creates magic.
I don't see why they couldn't do it off the same PDF, I would think.
Yeah, you'll have your entire package of PDFs from us. The other thing is, so again, we're developing automated test deck creation for our ballot on demand system specifically. The beauty of that is, again, coming in and trying to be an agile partner in terms of software development for you guys. That's not a certified system. That's not part of a certified system, so allow us to get something like that to you a lot quicker than pushing through a full certified version through EAC and through state certification and all of that. So the ancillary product type stuff is something we can move even faster. I would say by far in certified systems, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but the reason we're able to make changes so quickly and certify changes so quickly, first of all, is commercially available components because they go through their own testing, but it's also because we're about 5% of the code base of any other system that's available on the market. So we just have less, more efficient software code in our system, which lets us make changes faster, and then in the code review process, lets us get through that faster. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Windows-based, browser-based, you said you're a network, but you're not on the internet.
Correct.
However, if you're going to Google for translations or things of that matter, does that at that point you go to the internet and does that open you up to security, vulnerabilities, anything in regards to that? As far as security
I know where you're going with that. So there's kind of two answers to that.
in regards to, because it's a Windows-based system, it's a network, but not on the internet, but they're going to go over to Google for translation and things of that nature. Does at that point security, vulnerability?
Someone if they want to hear, they could move closer.
So
Why is it you want to hear move closer?
So there's kind of two answers to that question, or at least a two-part answer to that question. So with the translation in Google specifically, that is leveraging the browser's own capabilities, which are native on that device, so that's not touching the internet. You can always back up what you're doing for things like the service that Kier was talking about. That is taking your data off of your hard and localized system and putting it out into the world, getting the translations or whatever you're doing, audio files, anything like that, and then getting it back into the
And it's
system.
really just an HTML export of that text that you can then build audio for and import it back in. So it's not taking your database off, it's really just the text of the ballot in order to build the audio if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah. And that, just by the way, leveraging things like the native functions built into a browser is what allows us to have such a small code footprint, because you think the browser's already developed, so we've developed our system to work within that environment, and that's what's driving it. So it allows us to be more efficient in what we're focusing on. We don't need to worry about building a text-to-speech function into our software because it already exists in Google's software. They're investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into that technology, and we get to leverage that for free. That's the beauty of using commercially available components, but also commercially available software platforms, browser-based environments. And that doesn't just tie to translations, it ties to accessibility across the map. Google is putting a ton of R&D dollars into accessibility around browser-based environments and things like that, and we're gonna be able to leverage that over time. As they come out with new things, we'll be able to adapt our software to take advantage of that type of stuff. Any other questions on that? Okay. We can talk about ancillary products. I just want to open it up for questions on the precinct system at all. Again, I know we covered it all this morning. I would literally be saying the same things over to you that I showed you this morning. Happy to show anything in the process you want to see again, or if anybody didn't see anything in particular. But just to kind of recap, out of that design software, you get 3 things in one step.